You're live.
Right. Let me see. No Dave and Cam yet?
Let me look to see if they are in the. Yep, they are in. I'll promote them. They are
Okay.
in the um visit.
Attendees.
Yep. There's one. Go to panelists. There's two. There they are.
Hey everyone.
Hey, David.
Hey, Dave.
Wait, don't. Cam, are you on?
Yes, I'm here.
All right, good. Well, thanks everybody for being here this evening. It's the January 16th meeting of the Building Use and Visioning Committee. Calling the meeting to order. We have on my screen from left to right and down, we have Ray Daigle, myself, Superintendent Dr. Mike, Ashley, Cindy, Lisa Essler, David and Cam from Truex. Thank you for joining us. Dan Rossioli from the Waterbury member of the school board. So thanks everybody for being here. Does not appear there are any members of the public with us. So we can skip
Can I have minutes again, JB?
What's that?
I'll take care of the minutes again.
All right, thanks. I appreciate that, Mike. So let's get right in. I have a lot of important stuff to talk about tonight. And first on the agenda, before we kind of, if this works for you all, before we dove into the other options, I guess what would make the most sense, David and Cam, to just kind of go through the options and the numbers you've generated since then, and then somewhere in there include the so-called option K.
Yeah, what we did was we added K and we added K1 because it there and we've added a few as Cam was going through and crunching the numbers and looking at how the things fit. There were a couple of new options that they were really like D1, like variations on themes. Then what we've done is we have the numbers crunched as far as construction costs go. But what we don't have is the modeling yet that Lisa's doing for operations, for salaries and the impact on salary and benefits, which is we suspect is over the course of 20 or 30 years is going to be have much bigger impact than the cost of construction. So what we've done is we've ranked each option relative to each other. Like this one is the least expensive construction wise. This is the most expensive without putting actual numbers on it yet. Just we have the numbers in the background, but it's more important about relative to each other, which ones are more expensive than others. So we have that ranking we can go through. So what I would recommend is we go through all the options so we can talk about that and then the goal I think for us would be prior to the board meeting would be is if this committee has any recommendations about options that they recommend for further study or options that they recommend for take off the table in terms of going to the school board. So that's kind of the end goal is, at the end of this part of the process, and I know, we're still missing a few key data points is to somehow we have to narrow it down to like 3 or 4 options.
Okay, that sounds good to me. Ashley, Cindy, does that work for you?
Yep, definitely.
All
I know
right.
that's what the committee talked about before, David. The only thing I would just add is uh, they were hoping to recommend options, but when we go to the board, we still want a list that kind of shows the recommended options and options recommended to be removed or however
Right.
But for public purposes, we want to make sure that the public sees that everything on the table and
Sure.
Right.
Yeah, transparency for sure. Will we be able to, with the need to finish off that modeling, will we be able, after this exercise, to really, kind of hone in on those three or four, or is the rest of the modeling gonna potentially change things?
Well, the 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 modeling, I think there's a couple of uh, key factors. One is the modeling that Lisa's doing will is a big um, will be a big contributor as to which options over time um, save money or not. Because when you look at the relative cost of facilities to salaries and benefits, it's a small percentage. Um, Not that it's zero, but it's a small percentage of that total. So that's a key input. The other is, for this committee and the board to decide on what's the time frame that you're looking for cost savings. Are you looking for it in year one? Are you looking for it in year 20? Is it over the course of a bond? Like, what's the time frame? Because some of these solutions might cost more up front, but might save the district a ton of money over a 20-year period. So that's another um, factor. But you should have um, at this very 30,000 foot level have all the information you need to kind of start parsing through the different options. Then the idea is that once we identify which ones are viable, we would look at those in a subsequent phase more in depth, and we'd look at, okay, what kind of addition would you put on here? Could you put an addition on here and all that? But right now we're just trying to get to the three options that are worthy of that further study.
That works for me. Thanks, David. I appreciate it.
Okay,
All right,
should we get started?
let's do it.
All right, I'm not sure. Do I have? I do have sharing. Um, okay,
Yep.
there we go. Can everybody see? Let me go into slideshow mode. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Let me just get my screen set up here. All right, perfect. So this is an update of the the last presentation we gave. Um, we've got the themes. We've done capacity calculations now. We'll go through the planning options. We'll talk about the cost. We have that example of the cost modeling I think we've looked at already. That's where we want to get to. And then, there's some questions that we're posing, which I already alluded to, which we could get to. Here we are. Here's the schedule. We are now at this facilities committee meeting. Next week we have the board meeting, and then hopefully we get enough direction at the board meeting to be able to put together the final report, which will really talk about everything that's happened to date and identify the three recommended options, or however many get recommended, if any. But that's the goal. So we're trying to wrap up this portion of the work by February 1st. So and I think we've talked about these themes about maximum transportation times, this idea of equitable access to programs, centralized preschool, one for the Valley, one for Waterbury, Duxbury. And these are kind of like, some of these have more impact than others. This 2 sections per grade minimum has a big impact on whether or not the different options meet this criteria. but some of them have less of an impact. And, you know, we may not get to like a perfect option that is um, meets all the criteria. Like one of them, I think that's a real challenge is the aligning the middle school um, between Crossett Brook and Harwood Union and getting the middle schools to align grade wise. I mean, it's a worthy goal for sure, but you'll see when we go through these that it not all of the schemes meet that criteria. Um, you know, and so this speaks to that. And you know, the high school, um, we've heard different things. I think the most recent is that um, it is desirable not to move HCLC to Harwood. For a long time, that was a stated goal. It sounds like the thinking might have changed on that. And obviously, the science and STEM labs are a priority, but there's no like the high school needs are we know what those are. It's mostly infrastructure, and it doesn't it's not very impactful. I guess the one thing that would be impactful would be how much in a lot of these schemes, the middle school uh, is growing, and in those situations, um, I don't know why that says 6 through 8, but in a situation where the middle school at Harwood is growing, one of the questions out there is there any space at Harwood that the middle school could take over? Like, and if central office or HCLC doesn't move in there, is there a way that we could, like the world language area that's just north of the gallery area, could that be now become a middle school area? So that's part of the next iteration. Then here's the alternative programs. We've talked about that. The idea that there'd be one in the valley and one in Waterbury and Duxbury for elementary, and same thing for middle school and high school, be one per district. Um, we've tackled we've looked at pre-K, but I'm not sure we haven't really gotten to the level where we're looking at whether we can fit an alternative program in one of the schools, but that's coming. So we did calculate the capacities of the schools, and this is based on um, the state, um, the district quality standards, State Board of Education rules, which is for grades K through 4, 20 kids, 25. And what we did a very simple exercise, which was we said, if it's being used as a classroom, then we're going to count it as a classroom. And what we do is we count up all the classrooms and we divide by 35 square feet per student. If it's we take the square footage of a classroom, we divide by 35, and that gives us the number of students. If it's more than 20, we limit it to 20 for K through 4. If it's less than 20, we use the calculated amount. If there's a classroom with 2 or 3 special educators in there, we don't count it as a classroom. We're just assuming they need space. We don't know if they need that much space, but it's just too complicated to try and figure all that out. Um, so, and then, so we calculated that, and you can see that Brookside obviously is the largest. Crossett Brook is second, not counting Harvard here. And of the smaller elementary schools, Waitsfield is the biggest, and they're all Basin's clearly the smallest, but um, Waitsfield, Warren, and Moortown are of a similar size um, in terms of capacity. Warren's a little funky, you have to walk through some classrooms to get to other classrooms, and it's not, I wouldn't say the quality of space is equal across all these, but anyway, that's the capacities. And so what you can see, what I want to point out is that this goal of creating a 2-section per grade school, if that indeed is a goal, none of the schools in the valley are big enough. Just because a 2-section per grade school is more like 200 to 250 students. So none of them are big enough as they are. Some of them have like almost enough classrooms, but all the other support space is sorely lacking.
Brookside's the only one that actually has the majority of its program spaces based on the minimum typical program. Brookside is very close, even though it's a much larger school. None of the Valley schools have the stated program space that's desired.
David, just a quick question or quick
Yeah.
favor. Would you be able to share the presentation with me so I can link it in the minutes?
Share it as a link or share it as a PDF.
Is this in PowerPoint?
This is no, this is a Google slide deck.
Yeah, just if you just give me the link.
Sure,
Terrible.
I'll send that to you.
Thank you.
The so this is option A. This is and we've gone through these. Some of these haven't changed. There's not really. I don't know if I need to go back through them. Everybody's seen this, but just quickly, the schools, the Valley schools, when you just closed Facein, are still pretty small. They're 158, 166, 142. This is splitting up this Facein students and sending them equally, and then there's no alignment between the middle schools in terms of grade levels. The slide that we've added is this next, oops, is this next one right here, which just some notes about this requires a classroom addition for the pre-K at Waitsfield, and additions at all elementary schools here. In some cases, the classroom counts are okay, but like, they're missing art rooms or music rooms or enough offices for support staff. We've computed the total square footage in the district in each option and the square foot per student, which is quite high. And when you have less square foot per student, that means you're taking care of less facilities. The lower your square footage, the less facilities you have to take care of. And you can see here that the deferred maintenance cost ranks 4 out of 5, 5 being the most expensive option. The additions are on the low end, 2 of 12, and the total cost is 8 of 12. So it's one of the more expensive options and this is strictly just construction. If this doesn't account for salary and benefits, and it also doesn't, whenever you have more square footage and more, which means you're going to have more maintenance costs over time because you're taking care of more buildings. So that's A. B is where we combine, we go down to 2 schools in the Valley. And here you can see that the schools are, now we are getting up to scale, 206 and 251. And so I don't know why this says pass fail here. Because you know why? Because at a K through 6, you're really trying to get up to 224 to 308 for a 2-section per grade school. So the Facein Warren it's slightly smaller, but it's pretty close, And you have to also imagine too, are enrollments going to stay level or are they going to drop? And so what may start out as a 2-section per grade school could become could become less. This one doesn't really address Harwood, Crossett Brook, or Brookside. So we don't have the equity between, the alignment between the middle schools. So this option doesn't really touch those. And if we look at the next one, um, because we're basically taking two schools offline, the deferred maintenance drops. But we have to put more additions on. So this one ranks 5 out of 12 in terms of cost. And, it's like I said earlier, it remains to be seen what, what the impact on operations will be, because that could swing any one of these in a different direction, as far as total cost. This one is,
Lisa and
this
I
is,
came up with this one yesterday. It was kind of a what if, but it was very
yeah.
similar to what we had done with option B.
So this one was creating, um, all of, put all the 5-6s in Crossett Brook, um, all of the 7-8s at Harwood, and then, combining the, doing pre-K through 4s, at in the valley, 2 pre-K 4s in the valley. And so here you can see, that Harwood grows, the number of students grows there. So there's that issue whenever we grow the Harwood Middle School, we have the issue of how do we accommodate that space. There's plenty of room at Crossett Brook, and Brookside doesn't really change, and Warren and Waitsfield are small. They don't meet that 2 section per grade model. So this one, is requires, you can see the deferred maintenance is similar to the last one, but quite expensive in terms of relative to the others, in terms of additions. So in terms of cost, it's apologize. It's the most expensive of the options, because here you have to add to Harwood, you have to add to 3 schools, to make this one happen.
Quick.
Just so people know, for the purposes of this analysis, we went back to the 2024 programming work that was done at Harwood Middle High School, which showed that it was really the right size, and it would need to grow if you were adding HCLC or the central office. I think both of which are in question now. But in either way, uh, if any students are added to the Harwood site, we calculate an addition at the middle school based on the number of based on the capacity of the classrooms.
Can you just, David or Cam, you said that this B1, as far as Waitsfield and Warren, the reconfiguration does not meet the 2 sections per grade.
Right.
Explain that to me. I thought I had my
Yeah.
head around 2 sections per grade, but
Yeah, the reason is because it's only K through 4. And the other options we're looking at, it's either K through 5 or K through 6. And because the 5 and 6s are pulled out, the schools are, even though you combine Facein and more, you're down to 2 schools in the valley. That's why they're of a size. You can see here on the bottom right, Warren only has 144 K through 4 students.
okay.
Waitsfield. Now, the interesting thing is that, there's quite a few pre-K students in, you can see up on our top right chart here, um, if you just take all the Valley pre-K, it's 96 kids.
Mhm.
So, even though Waitsfield is not a 2-section per grade school, it would require an addition for pre-K. And that's one of the reasons that's driving the cost here, because we'd have to put an addition on Waitsfield for pre-K. And 96 students, that's
Mhm.
6 classrooms or
Mhm.
7. It's a lot of classrooms for pre-K, because you can only get 15 kids in a classroom if it's full day. If it's half day, obviously half of that.
JB, just to answer your question
Mhm.
directly, could be a 2-section school, but it would be less than 15 kids per class. So, and that may be something that is desirable even, but our first pass across this is trying to be consistent and treat every building the same and use the state's numbers to determine because we're trying to figure out what's really what's the minimum viable addition. Um,
But
you know
what
what I
we
mean?
have, yeah, what
Thank
we
you,
have
Ken.
here is these numbers, these where we underneath here where it says K4 160 to 220, that's a 2-section per grade school. The higher number is the state maximum, and the lower number I think is either might be your ideal or your maximum. So we're just trying to bracket that, you could have a 2-section grade. It might be your ideal number and the state maximum in here.
Just trying to articulate that when we say it's not a 2-section school, we mean it's not an efficient 2-section school with 10 true classrooms. It becomes it could become an efficient 2-section school with 8 classrooms, and 2 of the classrooms have mixed grades, or 3 of the classrooms have mixed grades, or something like that.
Okay.
And
That's
you
very
can see
helpful.
our square footage is still up there, and our square foot per student is still high. So option C is a single elementary school in the valley. This one is trying to, and this one does align Crossett Brook and Harwood. No change to basically we're matching the Waterbury Duxbury schools. So you've got Crossett Brook at 5 through 8, so Harwood's 5 through 8. You've got Brookside is pre-K through 4, so Waitsfield's pre-K through 4. So this does meet, now you've got some pretty big buildings. You get 303 students at Brookside plus 42 pre-K. Valley has 320 K through 4 students and 96 pre-K. If you look at so this does require an addition, obviously at Waitsfield, and it also requires an addition at Harwood. You can see here by closing 3 schools, we've reduced the total square footage in the district, and the square feet per student now is starting to come down. When you take these buildings offline, 3 buildings offline, so to speak, you reduce your deferred maintenance. So now it's 2 of 5, as opposed to the last one was 3 of 5. The additions, though, are, because we have 2 major additions, one at Harwood and one at Waitsfield, we're at 10 of 12. So it's, a higher cost originally, but, you could imagine, in a situation like this where now you've eliminated a lot of overhead administrative costs relative to only running 4 schools instead of 7, and your deferred maintenance, your maintenance moving into the future will be far less because you've got less buildings.
We suspect there's a correlation between low square foot per student and low operating costs, but we'll discover that here in the next week or so.
And sorry, the option C there, that was a 10 out of 12 for the construction?
Mhm.
Is that what that
Yes.
means?
Yeah.
The addition required at Waitsfield is
Yeah.
pretty
Yep.
pretty significant.
Oh, absolutely.
And this is one of those things like, do we know if we can even add an addition like it's so hard with these, when you're doing this kind of master planning, you have to like have like a kind of a, not a formulaic way of, you just have to have like a process and a method to analyze these without getting dragged into the details, because you go crazy if you try to consider every detail.
Mhm.
But there are, you could, somebody, it is an issue. How big of a building could we put in Waitsfield?
And
For sure.
I think that's the kind of question that gets answered in the next round.
Yeah.
If we figure out what the operating costs are, all of a sudden this one becomes attractive in terms of the long term. Folks want to look see more about this one. So then when we look we would start asking those questions, because I think there's also questions about whether Harwood can be added onto.
Right.
It's usually anything is possible with enough time and money, but that's its own problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm. It's interesting. Yeah. It's for another day, but
We're trying to
that number could be-
suspend disbelief for
yeah.
now to sort
Yeah.
of get
Yes.
all of them treated apples to apples, because
I
that will try that we hope will reveal what the best strategic decisions would be at the macro level.
So this one is, similar in terms of combining two Valley elementary schools, and then aligning the middle schools at 6 through 8. This does require making Brookside pre-K through 5, which is problematic, because we know Brookside's full. I think Cam did a D1 here, which I think was a really interesting take on it. This one, once again, the Valley schools do not meet the criteria of meeting the 2 section per grade because they're too small. Although I think the Moortown Waitsfield one actually does meet it. The Fayston Warren is a little smaller. This would require an addition at Harwood and potentially at Brookside, which we know is problematic.
It's
The
pretty modest, but it's true.
Right.
So that the original slide built out capacity of 399 at Brookside is more or less nice
Well,
to see
with the pre-K.
with a pre-K. Okay.
Yeah, with 42 pre-K on top of of course, looks like the pre-K numbers aren't in there, but it's 42 at Brookside. That bumps
Okay.
you up over that
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
highest maximum capacity.
one of the things about this scheme and is, there's a slight increase at Harwood. You probably maybe you could absorb that. We don't know. CrossFit Brook though is only has 192 students, so it's really doesn't the school has a lot more capacity. And so one of the things that Cam looked at was this one, which I thought was interesting, which was, why if we take pre-K out of Brookside and put it at CrossFit Brook, now CrossFit Brook has it's there's clearly enough room to do that, and then there is enough there that would create enough room to have Brookside be K through 5. So it's a little bit of sleight of hand, but because we were looking, and CrossFit Brook might even have room for like central office at this point if it was only 6 through 8, but we don't know yet.
It would require some reconfiguration to be sure, but
Right.
it might not be as crazy as feared. That's again another conversation for down the road if this option really looks like it's interesting and we want to dig in.
Can I just ask a question?
Sure.
Is that just looking to make the two middle schools both 6 through 8? Otherwise, why are we bothering with moving fifth back to Brookside, changing that dimension? If we felt we could educationally and in every other way do just what I think I mentioned in one, that I thought and you said it at the beginning, Dave, too, that, it isn't always necessarily going to be just equitable ages, but we've been
No, I
doing.
mean you know the aligning the middle school might be, it was a stated goal. It was stated pretty strongly by, when we did the surveys and the interviews, but that might just be one that gets it's not as important as another goal. But we were trying to meet that criteria here by having both the elementary schools be K through 5 and the middle schools be 6 through 8, so that there was alignment across the district.
Yeah,
Mike.
we're just trying to test. This was a very fast one to develop because it was built on the other one. So it was like, let's iterate it and see how it lands, and it may not be useful.
Thank you.
Mike, did you have a question or a comment?
Yeah, and I had a kind of a conversation with JB today and shared some information from principals. And when we met with principals, they did express concern with moving to a 6 to 8 model for a couple of reasons. It's possible, but I think the committee needs to know it's not just a matter of shifting kids from one class to another. There's kind of 3 areas. The main one that we talked about is certification. So certifications in Vermont go K to 6, 7 to 12, and then there's a middle level certification of 5 to 8. So we've built our curriculum around a K to 6, 7 through 12 model. We do our grading. We move to proficiencies at 7th grade. So there would be a lot of work that would be involved in moving to that model, and it could also produce some issues with staffing. Even though we run Crossett Brook as 5 to 8, it really is kind of 2 schools within a building. You have the 5, 6 elementary teacher model, and then you have the 7, 8 middle school model. So,
Yeah.
just talking to our principals, um, I wouldn't say they're opposed, but there is benefit of if we want to align more with the 5 to 8 Crossett Brook model as opposed to moving to a 6 to 8 middle school.
So this one requires, additions, classroom addition at Waitsfield, and Warren also would need could need some space for like support spaces. It's what we did was when we developed the sort of minimum requirements for a 2 section per grade school based on the surveys, the questionnaire, and interviews, we're really kind of adhering to that. When we determine the size of the additions that are needed at each school, it's basically to meet the program, this idealized program, which isn't not extravagant. I mean, it just says like when you have a 2 section per grade school, you need a cafeteria, you need I believe it has a cafeteria, but you need an art room, you need a music room, because as your school, when your school gets bigger, you can't just you have so many kids that to get enough periods of physical education in a gymnasium, it's very difficult to do when you're trying to have when you have lunch in that room. So as you get a bigger school, you need to have a separate cafeteria from than the gym. And so what we're doing when we calculate what's these construction rankings, there's a spreadsheet in the background which is calculating what size additions we need to, and they're strictly based on meeting that program. And that's not to say that once we get into it, we may say, we don't, we could do, there could be compromises, but for now, to keep it like apples to apples, that's what we're doing.
No, I appreciate that. And also I like Mike, are these top right corner 2024 data? This is the current pre-K enrollment at the schools?
It's the data we got from Lisa, I believe.
Okay. So Mike and Lisa, that is the case.
I mean, it
I'm-
changes every day, but it's got to be pretty
Sure.
close.
I was
Yeah.
on mute. I think that's our October 1st data. October 1st is what we use as the standard for the year.
I don't wonder, and I know a theme, and I don't know what's going on as far as the state in this regard. And I know a theme is to have a centralized preschool. Um, is that I'm just wondering about, the interplay with that with some of these. I mean, if we were to take that theme out, does that change any of these, or is that something, Mike, that must be done in your eyes?
There is a advisory committee on pre-K that delivered a report, and the goal is to move for all 4-year-olds to full-time. How they're proposing to do that is what remains to be seen.
Okay.
There are those of us who've encouraged, a lot of superintendents have encouraged the state to um, move to make the school district the primary. Like we would either be able to house them or we would then um, issue vouchers like we do now for students to go to private, just to build capacity. But some of the recommendations right now tend towards the let's provide vouchers, basically vouchers, and disperse students, which in my opinion doesn't work well. But so the answer to my question is kind of elusive because I just don't know what they're going to do.
No, that helps though, Mike. Thank you.
JB, we have some options that do have the multiple preschools in the valley.
Okay.
So that we can look at, and honestly, just for what it's worth, these are not the options that you're limited to exploring.
Mhm.
This is us
Mhm.
iterating and trying to get as many permutations for consideration out there. And if you like elements of this one and that one, and you want to move that forward for exploration, that's acceptable as well.
Okay. Great. Thank you,
Yeah,
Ken.
although yeah, there's
Well,
a mind.
yeah, I mean, I think for what it's worth, not to cut to the chase here, and we're going to go through all these, but there are no magic options.
Yep.
And, so something is going to have to give. It's either equity, money, alignment, or some combination of those
School
those
size, yeah.
three,
I think it's gonna end up being a combination of all of those things. I
Yeah,
think
it
we're
is.
gonna have to sacrifice having everybody have the exact same experience. I just don't see how I don't see it being viable financially to a lot of these, for what we're getting. And I understand that. I guess the part I least understand and want to understand more is how high up the list of priorities is this 2-section thing, and how much of a priority is it that all middle schools are aligned exactly. Those are my big right now. That's what I'm wondering.
Those
Yeah.
those are great questions for this group to consider.
Yeah.
And the board, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that really the 2-section per grade minimum should, that's something I think that will come out when Lisa does her modeling. But also, there's there's efficiency benefits, but there's also educational benefits and um, and there's also staffing benefits. So like at a 2-section per grade school, you can have a full-time librarian, you can have a full-time nurse, you can have a lot of these support staff. And it's what we hear around the state is that like, given a choice, a librarian who has to work 1 day a week at 4 different schools is going to, or can work 4 days a week at one school. They're going to pick the 4 days a week at one school every time. And so a lot of these small schools are struggling staffing wise because all they can afford is, we need a guidance counselor, a 0.2 guidance counselor, a 0.4. So anyway, it's there's
I
that
hear you on
aspect
that.
of it too.
Yeah, no, I
Well,
hear
I'll say to that point, and we'll be presenting the budget as well. So administratively, we've been having a lot of these discussions. When you look at our cost per pupil, and where we rank in the state, we are high. And one of the reasons we're high is our community has supported making sure we have, for example, full-time nurses and full-time librarians in each building. But there is a cost to that. Full-time principals, and which is mandated for buildings of 100. So that's you start to build economies of scale when you get more, and that's where we're as a district, as the state gets tighter on funding and as costs go up, they're the kinds of areas that will require not just Harwood but other school districts to scale back and go back to those part-time shared positions unless you build the scale that we're talking about. So that's
Yeah.
the challenge there. And I do want to point out too, and just from my experience in a larger system that had larger buildings. Just talking about middle schools, I had two middle schools. They were both 7-8 middle schools. And even having aligned grades does not mean that everything is going to be equal. You strive for equitable circumstances. I had one middle school with 350 students and the other with 500. So the one with 350 had three teams. The one with 500 had four teams. That four-team building had like two PE teachers in full-time in the building. The other one had one and a shared person. So some of the class structures looked different, not because we weren't aligned, but because there's differences in staffing with even a 350 to a 500. So this for some information that doesn't necessarily mean, that alignment would be less important to me than making sure providing the most equitable situation we can for students.
Right.
Sure. No, I totally get that and appreciate that. I'm gonna be honest, we talk about main issues here for me, and what, Mike, your email today to my, or response to my question is really weighing on me, because I have been approaching this like, okay, I think if we could free up some space, say by removing the sixth grade and putting them over to, into Waitsfield or to Warren, or sorry, to CrossFit or to Harwood, but learning about all the trickiness that would come with having a K-5 school is
K-6,
worrisome. It's
yeah.
worrisome to me, and I should be that. It's that big of a deal, Mike. Is that correct? It comes with a lot.
I would not say that the board needs to say, no, we can't do that, but I would say, like, kind of a next step from here really will be if there are some options that the board wants to consider to start digging deeper, getting community input, getting teacher input, getting principal input. I would say that if the board wanted to explore an option of 6 to 8, that we really would need to convene probably a teacher principal group to kind of study through what the ramifications would be and how we would have to transition. Because, for example, all of our sixth grade teachers are K-6 certified. So you move a sixth grade into the middle school, and then all of a sudden, if you're looking to have a middle school configuration, then you're looking at different staffing levels. Some of the teachers could get, um, middle level certification. You could do that, but it would change. It would really require a lot of planning and a lot of thought and
Okay.
discussion with the staff.
Okay. Thanks.
All right. I'm looking at the time, and I want to keep moving through these. This is a great conversation, but I also don't want to run out of time. So this is E. E is basically all of the 6-8 graders at CrossFit Brook, which requires, moving the fifth graders back to Brookside, which we know has issues. Harwood would just be 9 through 12, and that would be so there would be room in there for other things like central office, HCLC if that was desired. Could be here we have pre-K, um, 2 pre-Ks in the Valley and 1 at Brookside. This one is, because we're not closing as many schools, the deferred maintenance cost is higher. You need an addition at both at Warren and Waitsfield. CrossFit Brook might need a small addition. So this one is 11 out of 12. And this is just construction cost once again. F is this idea of turning CrossFit Brook into a pre-K through 5 middle school, and basically retiring Brookside, and then putting all of the middle schoolers at Harwood, and then 6 through 8, that is, and then the pre-K 5 model, similar to the last one. This one, once again, the Valley schools are small. the Harwood Middle School is big, would require an addition. Crossett Brook has ample capacity, we believe, for the K through 5 or pre-K through 5. So if we go to our notes, requires a reconfiguration at Crossett Brook. You'd need some additions. I don't know why the construction cost ranking is so low. Cam, can you speak to this one?
Yeah, it.
Oh, because we take Brookside
Yeah,
offline.
the Brookside has a huge, because of its size and age, it's anticipated to have a very large deferred maintenance bill. And again, we're using the Association of Physical Plant Administrators
Right, right.
recommendations that we got from the state for this, and until such time as we have a facility evaluation for better data. But it's worth noting that when we use that recommendation and apply it to the buildings in this district, Harwood lands exactly where we said it would a year ago. So it's not out of left field.
Yeah.
Um, so there's alignment between past work at Harwood and that that method of budgeting.
So the additions are high, but because the deferred maintenance is so low, and you can see we're starting to see a drop in this. When you take Brookside offline, and 2 schools in the valley, you're starting to lower your total square footage, and you're getting it down to 213 square feet per student. So this is one of the most cost-effective solutions. But it doesn't meet, we don't know operationally how this will sugar out.
I was surprised that it was the lowest overall, but
Right. This one is interesting. This is going with a pre-K through 6 model at Crossett Brook, and keeping Harwood. So Harwood would have all middle schoolers, 7th and 8th grade. So, and then keeping the Valley School. So now we've got alignment. All the elementary schools are pre-K through 6. We've taken Brookside offline. We've achieved, um, we've achieved, we've gotten all the schools are now both 2 section per grade school. So this one meets a lot of the criteria. Let's look at the notes here. So it does require classroom additions at Waitsfield and Warren. There is the issue at Harwood. We're adding these students, 100 more 7th and 8th graders, and there is an addition required at Crossett Brook to get the pre-K in there. However, you can see the deferred maintenance is one of the lowest, and similar to the last one. And even though the additions are one of the highest ones, the total construction cost is at the low end. And this one does achieve the alignment, and it does align with the way you were talking about the licensure piece works.
It's the second lowest square feet per student as well.
What's the lowest, Cam? Is it the one we just looked at?
Option E, maybe.
Yeah.
Nope, yeah, I think it was F was the one that was 1, wasn't that right?
Well, the lowest
see.
square feet per
Oh,
student.
low square foot, yep.
Yeah.
F
Oh, it
was
is F,
213.
There you go.
219. So it's very close. So H we didn't do any more work on because I think there was in the notes that we got back from the last meeting. We can look at it if you want, but we're trying to triage a little bit because there's so many new options. So we didn't really look at this one any further, but this was the idea of, similar to the last one, a pre-K through 6 at Crossett Brook and a pre-K through 6 at Waitsfield. And Oh, this is the one where we're leaving K through twos at all the schools to make early childhood centers, and I think this one got the thumbs down. So we didn't
I-
look at the we didn't look at
We can test it, but in my in my data mining, there wasn't a compelling reason to try and put it back on the table.
the same
I've-
thing with this was a similar a variation on the theme of this early childhood center
Yeah,
concept.
that's just too many buildings still in operation.
Yeah. So we looked at K, which at JB, I think you had identified. And what you can see is that when you only send 25% of Facein to Warren, you only have 107 kids there plus 36 pre-K. So it's very small. Whereas when you send 75% to Waitsfield and 67% to from Moortown to Waitsfield, you end up with quite a large school. You end up with 255 kids, K through 5 plus 60. So you get this out of balance situation. So what we did look at, and we did go run it through the mill here, it's also at the lower in terms of construction cost ranking, it's similar to the last one, but it does not meet this idea of the schools. You get it's lopsided. Warren is very small, Waitsfield is very big. So what we did was we did a little variation on that where we sent more kids to Warren and less kids to Waitsfield. And that helps a little bit. And because now you have 150 kids at Warren and 212 at Waitsfield, not counting pre-K. You do get more at Brookside. Brookside goes up. Right now, Brookside has 303. They go up to 329 with the kids. And I think the idea was that the students that are more in Moortown that are closer to Waterbury would go to Brookside. And once again, this one has the this has Harwood. The middle school is 6 through 8, Crossroad Brooks 5 through 8. We didn't look at this with pre-K 6 in the valley and leaving the middle school alone because we were just kind of riffing off of JB's suggestion. So
yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I think, and Ashley would probably agree, is I think the percentages were just kind of thrown out there. I think we'd be open to whatever.
yeah,
And so I
Totally.
appreciate you running with this one. And go ahead, Ashley.
No, I agree that we were just sort of looking from a geographical standpoint of how you could change the layout. And in
Yeah.
that, close 2 schools, but keep 2 schools open. I get that we never quite achieved that similarity, but
yeah,
we also had a little bit of an issue with the idea of turning the Harwood campus adding the 5th grade there because it seemed like such a broad spectrum of ages for one building. That was
Yeah.
but I realize there is this slight difference in the equity of experience.
yeah.
And-
So this one has a very high, it's a lot of square footage because we're not, the ones that achieve the lower square footage and the was where we really, when we took Brookside offline. I think that's what really makes a big difference. The ones where we keep Brookside online are much more square footage to take care of, much higher deferred maintenance. You can see this one is on the 7 of 12 rank wise in terms of construction cost. So, we've got the spreadsheet all ready to go. Once we get the salary and benefits, the sort of operational budgets modeled for each one of these, and really it can be very, very simple as our models are very somewhat simple. Then we'll crank that through over the time period that you folks want us to look at it, whether it's 20 or 30 years. because we were thinking is over the life of, to make almost all of the moves here, you have to do some construction, and presumably there'd be a bond. So we thought looking over the lifetime of a bond would make sense. And then we would kind of do some kind of graphic analysis. This one is just a mock-up of a hypothetical district, and the dark blue once again is your salaries and benefits, and the other colors are operations and maintenance, capital renewal, and new construction. So you can see, like, over time, if you took out a bond, your bond payments either stay the same or go down over time, whereas your salaries and benefits and fuel costs go up and up and up. And so what we would do is we would run this for each option and compare it to the baseline. And so we could say over 20 years, looks like you're saving, 100 million or 50 million, or you're not saving anything, and it doesn't make sense. So I see some,
Is the bond one bond? Is it one bond across all buildings and all projects, including bringing Brookside back up to, or is it multiple bonds? How does that work?
It would depend on how the work was structured. So
right.
if you were saying we're gonna go after repairing, Brookside, Harwood, and Warren. I'm just making things up.
Yeah.
We're gonna ask the public to support that in one vote. That would be one bond for all those buildings. You could also go out individually and um, do projects that way. I think my own assessment from having a lot of community conversations during my entry plan is that one of the reasons there were many reasons the last bond failed. One of the reasons was there were so many different projects and elements mixed together in one piece that it gave multiple people the ability to say no.
Right. It was overwhelming. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, and I think for the purposes of this exercise, we're we're just saying, okay, you're going to take care of this amount of deferred maintenance and this amount of construction, and that's, let's say, 100 million, and you're just going to take out a bond for that, and here are the bond payments over the next 30 years. Like, just to simplify the analysis, it would only be more if you said, well, we're going to do a bond every 10 years for a third of the work. It would just cost even more, because in 10 years from now, the construction could be triple or double or whatever. So it's for now, for what we're anticipating is just identifying, okay, here, with this option, you take 3 buildings offline. We're going to take that deferred maintenance off the table, and you need these additions, and the cost is, let's call it 100 million. And here, what a bond payment looks like for the next 30 years. And it's just really, all of this is at this level. It's an academic exercise to try and determine which is the horse you want to, what are the directions you want to pursue more, and then really get into understanding a little more about what the realities are of these different options. This is just so we can narrow down to 3 or 4 ones that seem more viable or a better approach. So Dan and JB, you guys, you have your hands up. So thanks for being patient.
I was trying a quick thing. Is it possible? I don't mean to cut you off, Dan. How you go next? Can you go back to K1? What? And I guess maybe Cam. What if can we get a look at this without reconfiguring the elementary schools? Can we get it? And I guess is there could you see any legs to that if we kept if we combined if we had the 2 Waitsfield and Moortown, but we kept them K-6? Can we get a build on that, or do you think?
Yeah, no, it might be a good option to explore, because it eliminates an addition at Harwood Middle School, and
Okay.
adding 2 classrooms
Mhm.
to the building in all of these cases, we're looking at both, is there enough classroom space? And then what about all the other things, your special educators, your speech language pathologists, social emotional learning, et cetera, et cetera. All those things are static.
Mhm.
And adding 2 more classrooms for the 6th grade is a marginal increase. So there could
Yeah.
be legs, and we can look at that.
Ashley, what do you think? Yeah.
I agree. I agree. Yes.
Dan?
Because
Oh, sorry.
honestly, there's this piece about what we were talking about with K and now K1 is the ability to use Warren. Yes, it would be smaller, but could it go without construction? You know what I mean? Is there a way to avoid a building? I mean, I know that Warren has limitations on its construction because of its lay on the land that's owned by the town and all that. So kind of if we set aside the need for middle schoolers to all be having a 5 through 8, having exactly the same thing. I like JB's idea just now. If we leave it to 6th grade in the Valley, I mean, it's not exactly the same, but we achieve many things, right? The 1, 2s, 3, 4s, 5, 6 splits, that licensure issue goes away.
Yeah.
I hear that. I like
Yeah,
that.
I'm really afraid of all that it might entail to not have to make it K-5. Sorry, talk too long. Dan, sorry, bud.
Okay, thanks.
Floor is yours.
Thank you. So, David, I was really interested in how you're saying that the deferred maintenance and salaries and benefits are most likely to outweigh construction costs and over the long term, looking at 30 years, right? And so,
Well, just to clarify, the salaries, if we look at this chart here, I was really talking about the blue bar, dark blue, which is salary, benefits, and fuels. That's going to keep growing. Maintenance is going to keep growing. But if you bonded, let's say today, for all your needs, that payment is fixed and not that it's free, but it's fixed and it goes down over time. So you can, and it's a small portion of your overall costs per year, just
okay.
to clarify.
It
So,
means
Okay,
there's
sorry.
it
So-
mean,
Go
what
ahead,
we're,
Dan.
oh, go ahead.
Yeah, or so I guess the follow-up to that was if we should be looking at a 3 campus scenario to reduce our square footage per student even further and have a Crossett Brook PK to 6, a Valley PK to 6, and then the Highwood campus being 7 to 12, and just
Yeah.
have the 3 campuses.
Yeah. Yeah. I think one of those,
We have one that's very close to that.
yeah. Do you remember
That's-
which one that was, Kim?
Option C or D or something like that. It's the one with all the arrows pointing at Waitsfield.
Right.
It's option C.
Yeah.
You know,
Sorry,
one
I'm
thing for
scrolling.
folks to mull on as we're talking about all this is I have tested um the the model that we're using, and the if you we've been talking about how, look, nobody ever does all of the deferred maintenance. Like as David said, it's kind of an academic exercise, and it's really meant to explore what's the potential exposure of the district. Most of the time, districts who get into this and do the detailed analysis and we go back and forth, they do a subset of all the things that need to get done because it's too much money to do it all. But if you do half of it, for instance, the ranking doesn't change.
So
if you
option C still has 4 campuses, right? Because we haven't closed Brookside in that scenario.
Oh, right.
So
Yes,
what would it
that's
look
true.
like if we consolidated down to 3?
We can look at that.
I'm not
Yeah.
sure I'm not sure we want to
Didn't
look
we-
at that.
Didn't we
Well,
do, we
the
had one where
elements
we
of that is in each
closed.
one, but it's like, each various of those options have those elements in them, but they're not all brought together in any one.
It's a hybrid of options that we have currently. We've looked at
Yeah,
this for other
so
districts, kind of what's the minimum number of campuses, and you do get increased efficiency, and you do have less overall square footage, which means you have less
so it would
maintenance and
be
upkeep.
Dan, it would be similar to G, except we would have just one school in the valley is what you're saying, right? This one has pre-K through 6. We
Right.
close Brookside. We have Crossett Brook as pre-K through 6. And then we would create one Valley Elementary School that was pre-K through 6.
Right.
That would,
It's
would
Harvard
cost-
and it's Harvard and Waterbury G plus Valley C.
Yeah. And this would be 457 students. It would be it's
A big school.
you need
be a
new
big
buildings.
school. I don't, yeah, it would be a big school. But I mean, it's not a big school. For Vermont, it's a big school. It's a medium-sized elementary school, to be
Right,
honest.
but-
In fact, the Pincus, is it Picus or Pincus report?
Picus, I believe.
Picus report that the state had commissioned talks about ideal elementary school sizes from both efficiency and educational. And it's in that zone. It's like 350, 400 is where they think the sweet spot for an elementary school is. Now, that doesn't necessarily scale to Vermont, but that's what the report talks about.
Yeah, travel time will be the issue for folks to overcome. And I think, and I'll just note here that I think it's already an issue. We hear this all the time throughout the state and different districts. For some reason, 45 minutes is what's commonly stuck in people's head about what they think is appropriate. But in most districts in Vermont, it's already over an hour, even when you have local elementary schools. Like I think my kid's on the bus for an hour and 5 minutes. Another district where we looked at this, it was an hour and 5 minutes. So that's going to be, I only bring that up not to sort of say there's anything to do about it, but I think it's going to be a political discussion around the community, or it's going to influence people's opinions, and they may not be considering the status quo realistically.
And it's not, I mean,
So-
I think that doesn't repurpose buildings. That ends up looking like a brand new campus in the
Yeah.
valley, which
Yeah.
sounds really expensive. And my real reason for wanting to not go down that road is we don't have a lot of time to look at all of this and adding in things that are kind of, outliers
Yeah.
seems like a waste of time for me.
And the district.
No offense, Dan.
District
Well,
may have to buy a property and build.
One district we're working with is looking at, we're looking at what's the end state that they want to get to, but then they're looking at, okay, what can they do next year? What can they do with with minimal interventions to get there? So it's I think once we have the numbers for salaries and benefits and we can put that into the cost model, we'll it should be real. I'm really excited to see which ones pop up, because right now we're just doing construction cost ranking, but when you add everything together, different ones might rise to the top. And I think that'll be very, very illuminating. And I think also, on January 28th, the governor is going to have his budget address, and he's going to speak, I think, with a little more detail about their proposal for Vermont schools. And they, I feel like this conversation is exactly the kind of conversation that they want school districts to be having. And we don't know what they're going to say about class sizes or school sizes in terms of direction. And it's got to go before the legislature. There's going to be a lot of haggling. It's not like whatever he announces on January 28th is going to become law, but at least will be an indication of the direction that the Agency of Education is moving in.
And there have been some discussions in my commission work, and I don't have any official inside information other than my perceptions from discussions. And I think the first thing to say is there's a large number of schools under 75, under 50 in Vermont. And I think they're going to be the ones that's the low hanging fruit, not our buildings, but our public hears small schools and they think Facein because that's our context. The other thing I think they are going to go after is trying to regionalize some high schools. Again, that's my gut instinct.
Yeah.
That increases opportunity for kids with greater class sizes, and that's, building high schools is a large expense when you look at the work that's needed across the state. So that's my gut instinct. I
And
could be
high
wrong.
school is half of the deferred maintenance in this district.
I bet. Yeah. Well, hopefully he'll announce a lot of money for infrastructure as well.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, let's all hold our breath. I'm sure.
Separate, but still part of it.
Mhm, mhm.
And we are getting it. I'm looking at the time. We're at 7:18, and I have a hard stop because I have to run another meeting at 7:30.
Okay.
Yeah.
Lisa had her hand up.
This is a hybrid of several, but I'm just thinking if, I don't think we've considered this, but if we were to take B and K, and combine, making, both Warren and Waitsfield PK through 5, and not change the high school, but then making Cross at Brook 5 through 8. So
It is
taking-
already.
No, but taking the 6th graders out of Warren and Waitsfield. So
And what
making
about Hartwood Middle School? Hart stays the same?
stays the same.
I
So
have
you
a
would have-
commute issue with that
it's a commute issue. That's what I'm.
for
Yeah.
little kids, littler even than we were considering before.
I think the option K2, just from what I know
Yep.
of the data, the option K2 may have some legs. That's the kind of 3 campuses, 1 for each kind of grade band. And, the only reason, and I totally hear you, Ashley, the only reason that you might want to consider looking at that is that we can be very quick about generating the data. We already have all the tests done. So it's just about assembling the different pieces and parts. And when it gets time to get public comment, it may be of a benefit to this group to be able to say, when someone says, "Did you look at this?" to be able to say, "Yes, we did."
Yep.
And we
We
just dismissed it
definitely
for
need
these.
to do that.
We
Yeah.
dismissed it for these reasons. So it might be worth doing just so that you can
What is
dismiss it.
K2? I can't see
So-
it now. I
So yeah,
can't.
that's the one, Cam and David, that
That
I
you
think
just
actually
suggested, yeah.
that's
Which
the
is
one.
K1 with
So,
P.
yeah,
with
actually, this
keeping
is the
the
one we talked about and presented to Dave and Cam over email. But instead of K5 here in Waitsfield and Warren, it stays K6. So we avoid all the stuff that we learned from Mike today.
Okay, so
Sorry,
that's K2.
I'm sorry, I said K1, but I was thinking of the one that Dan mentioned, which was 1 school in the Valley, 1 school at Crossed Brook, 1 school at Harwood. And that, which probably will have the lowest square feet per student, but will have enormous construction costs.
Yeah.
And it's unknown at this time whether that would have operational savings. But that sort of reductivism is sort of going as far as you can
Yeah.
in consolidation. So it represents the bracket, the end of the bracket. You can't really
Yeah.
consolidate any further. So
I mean, I'm fine. Are you saying, Cam, that maybe we should just run the numbers for the public's sake?
I'm thinking there may be benefit in that politically when you
Yeah.
get into a public meeting to be able to say, yeah, we looked at it and here's the data and it didn't make sense to us. Do you think
Yeah.
it makes sense? You know?
I think you make sense. I don't think it makes sense, but I think it makes sense to have it, have it there so the public, just as you said, they can say, well, have you considered this? Well, yes, we have. So
Our sense is
I
that the
agree with
public is
that.
going to our sense is that the public is going to want to hear that you folks have left no
Yeah.
stone unturned.
absolutely, 100%.
Okay, I'm willing for that purpose, but I like K2 as well. I think we should work on
Yeah.
that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I've jotted down a few here. I know we're conscious of everybody's time here. And I guess I'm curious as to what the other committee members, do you want to go through these questions first or?
well, I just want to I guess what I want to ask is what is the goal when we present to the board? We're going to obviously we're going to be educating them about all these different options, what we've been kind of giving them a status update. And I think one of the questions would be, they may ask this, the facilities committee is like, well, what do you recommend? What do you, in terms of which options do you think are worth exploring? Because we need to we need to narrow down the number of options for the, the report could have all the options in it and say like, here's what we looked at, and here's the relative merits of all of them. But what we were originally thinking was that out of this process, we would identify 3 or 4 that would we think have legs and should be developed further, and that's what would go in the report. And so the role of this committee could be to make that recommendation, to the board at some point. We don't have all the data tonight, because we don't have the modeling, but so I guess it's always, I always like when we present to a board or to committee to kind of talk about what the goals of the meeting are. And I guess and so we're planning, on presenting what we're showed tonight. I don't know, Lisa, do you, with the modeling, is that something you can have by, next week, or is that something that's going to be a couple of weeks away?
I will have I hope to have it completed by next week. Yeah.
Okay. So we may be able to
I'll work
present
on
that, in part.
Okay.
We'll have to
I think
see.
I think B should also stay in the mix. Just because it seems reasonable to me. I don't know. What do other people think?
Yeah, so I wrote down, I mean, honestly, I right now my favorite, although I'm not seeing it, is that K2 version of so it's K1, but keeping the 2 elementary schools, Moortown Waitsfield and Warren at PK to 6. So that would be my favorite. I think second behind that was K1, although recognizing the challenges that brings of a pre-K to 5 setting. I think G has some legs. And then I also wrote down B. And I did not dislike D1 either, so I kind of wrote down 5, but that was my order. It was K2, K1, G, and B.
We're kind of getting to the end of the meeting time, and we want to respect everyone's time. Would it be worthwhile to sort of give folks this slide deck to peruse, look at the questions, and then send out like a Google form, like a survey that says, vote 3 times for the options you think are the best. And it's not that you're taking them off the table now. It's just that these are the ones that the committee thought were interesting. And so when you talk to the board and they ask you, which ones do you think are good, you'll have an answer. I don't know, I'm not trying to make it complicated, but I'm cognizant.
So wait a minute. I thought the goal of this meeting was for you guys to go away with some amount of what we really are interested in. Or you want to take another step to find.
Well, no, I would like to do that. It's just we're running out of time and I don't want you to rush the conversation.
We're not rushing.
No.
I mean, honestly, the people in this room are the people that need to speak to it for now. I mean, I'm up for a survey for the board, but I'd like to see us send you with a mandate of some kind.
And you can go beyond the 7:30 time. That's not a problem. I just see if maybe Cindy can finish up my notes for me.
Right. I think just in terms of what might be appropriate is, the role of this, I believe this facilities committee is to make a recommendation to the board. The board is going to have final authority. And so you may want to show them, we may want to run through all of these and say, okay, and here are the ones that the committee recommends as having the most potential.
I like that, Dave.
We could do a straw poll right now. People raise their hands if they like it. We'll just click through the options.
Okay, go for it. Let's do it.
Okay, so
David, do you want to put them up and I'll record the vote?
Yeah.
And David and I will not vote.
Let's have Mike vote because he's still here, so that's good.
Okay.
I'm Lisa and I are this is.
You're non-voting.
Yeah, no, I really want.
Can't vote. Okay.
Okay.
I was
So
Mike. I wouldn't be voting either.
So the only
Yeah.
committee members in the room are me, Cindy, and JB, right? That's who's voting. Okay.
Okay. So option A,
Not enough cost savings.
Yeah.
If you guys use the raise hand tool, then I can see them on the,
Okay.
I've got the
So
participants.
you want
window.
us to raise our hand if we
If
want
you
to
like,
keep
if you
it?
like it,
Yeah.
raise your hand.
Yeah,
Okay.
if this is one of the schemes you recommend.
Or
So-
one we want to at least
Okay.
look more into.
Yeah, for future
Yeah.
development,
Yeah, yeah,
recommend
yeah.
for future development. Okay,
Looks
option
looks like
B.
no votes.
Uh,
Did you have two votes?
option
Were those
B.
2 votes for option A?
no, these are
No,
for
this is
big,
option B.
which I would
Okay.
like.
I'm gonna put
further.
my hand up for that if I can find my freaking hand. Hold on a second. Oh, there it is. Okay.
Ooh, 4 votes. Okay.
Okay. Option B1.
B1. One is B1. Why can't? Oh.
B1 is all the 5th, 6th graders go to Crossett Brook and all the 7th and 8th graders go to Harwood.
Your hand is still up, Ashley, unless.
Oh,
you're
I'm taking that down.
I don't
Sorry.
like
Okay,
also
moving
okay.
on. Option C.
Not for me.
No.
No.
Option D.
Not a lot of support on the ground here.
And sorry for interrupting, Cindy, I just sent you the link for the minutes. I can polish it up if you can just capture the times for the, like, adjournment and everything else.
Okay, and you just sent that?
Sorry.
Okay, I got it.
So this is option D1.
Oh, Dan, are your hand is up because you're voting.
I'm voting for D1, yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Voting for D1.
Damn, I can't figure out how to see the picture.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm a no on D1. I don't
Yeah.
like the ones that.
Me too.
Okay.
Side.
E.
I'm on.
And again, I'm a no on that.
no on
I-
this one.
No,
Okay.
Which one is that? Oh, I'm sorry.
trying to put 5th grade back in Brookside, and Crossett Brooks is a 6th.
No, no.
And all middle schoolers at Crossett Brook. at
Yeah,
6th
all
through
middle
8th.
schoolers. Okay. F. F is closing Brookside. It doesn't say that on the diagram, but and then pre-K, 3 pre-K 5s and the middle school is 6, 8.
And the construction on that one, can you go to the next page?
And that's all of the 6th graders in the whole district, right? 6 through 8.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. This
I
one
should-
was
Passed
the
on that.
lowest construction cost.
Yeah.
Okay,
No votes.
no
No
votes.
Okay.
This one is also closes Brookside and turns Crossett Brook into a pre-K 6, and then there's 2 pre-K 6s in the valley, and Harwood is a 7, 8.
I'm not a huge fan of this, but I think, and I don't want to close Brookside, but I don't wonder if this would allow a deeper look into why we should or should not close Brookside. So I would be okay with it being investigated further. That being said, I'm not a
Right.
huge fan of it. So
Is this
I
G? Yeah, me
G,
too.
so I defer to Cindy and Ashley on this.
I'd go for that too.
Okay, so
Two-
yeah,
two-
two
yeah,
votes.
for
for
yes.
C.
Yeah, I'll
Okay.
put my hand up.
Okay.
Happy for a lot of
Now
reasons.
H, and
Nope.
I think we've already taken H and J off the table.
Yep.
So then we're on K.
There's a K1 too, right?
Yeah, there's a K
Yeah.
one. So this is K, and then this is K1.
K had the percentages, right?
Yeah,
Let's
Yeah.
skip that one. Yeah, I would like K1 and K2 to be
yeah,
investigated,
Both
even though
of
I
them.
don't, per Mike's discussion on why this could be so challenging, I was just curious as to what the numbers would be. So I would like this to be.
Me
Yep.
too. I'm gonna say yes on that as well.
so K2 or
And
K1.
K1.
Yep.
And then
Both of them.
certainly the one I most want to see would be the K2 that Cam or you guys will put together, which is K1, except we're keeping
Right, pre-K through 6, yeah.
Wakefield and Warren at pre-K through 6. And that would be,
That's
that's
two.
one that most excites me. It's just me.
Okay, so that gets
Okay.
3 votes.
And you could tweak that with
Let
your
me just-
Brookside attendances. I mean, the kids on that,
Yes.
that's that one with the weird side angle for the
Mhm.
kids to go to Brookside that live on that side.
Yeah.
That is a weird number.
Yeah, it's not gonna be perfect, but if you guys can come up with some sort of, percentages that might jive, that makes it work, I'd be happy with that.
Right, so we could tweak the percentages to get
Yeah.
it to,
To make it
Yeah.
more, I mean, to meet some of our different goals.
Yep.
One of them
Yeah.
being less construction.
That one's K1, are we talking about now?
This
K
is-
two has the PK to 6 versus
Yeah.
PK to 5
Oh,
and moving
okay.
all the 6th grade. Yeah.
Okay, got it.
okay.
And
So,
then are we doing the 3 campus bracket option as well, or where do we land on that?
oh, the one
Yeah.
that we were talking about that has the pre-K 6, one pre-K 6 at CrossFit Brook, one pre-K 6 in the Valley. Yeah, we have to add that.
Yeah, and I don't, as far as I'm concerned, I'd also defer to Cindy and Ashley on that, but I would like to have that included just so we cover all the bases, but I don't want that
Yeah.
to be a recommendation from this committee.
I think we could
Right.
why don't we call it L?
Yeah, L.
Unless Ashley or Cindy thinks otherwise, but I think we're all on the
No,
same.
I think it's the extreme and we should show it.
Okay,
Yeah,
but it's not a recommendation.
No.
yeah.
Yeah.
What
Okay.
are we talking about, L?
L is,
L being like Dan's idea of
Three.
three campuses,
Okay,
the
got it.
Harwood one, and that
Got it.
eliminates Brookside and closes all the Valley schools and builds
I
a
got it.
new school somewhere.
I got it, thank you.
That's just for transparency purposes, Cindy.
Yeah, no, I got
Nope.
that.
Yep.
it's basically this one, except that it's similar to G, except instead of 2 schools in the Valley, there's 1.
Mhm. Yep.
Okay. Oh, okay, David, okay, David. Okay, so I'm looking at these minutes that I'm supposed to do. The committee walked through each option and weighed in on what they felt were the best options, right? Is that what
Sure.
we just? Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Perfect.
If you need any help, Cindy, I can help you with the minutes there, but
Okay, I'm okay with them. I think actually Mike kind of filled them in, figuring what was gonna happen.
Yep.
But I'll
He
send
can-
them around and you fix them
He,
if you
he
think.
can see the future.
Oh, yeah, you can.
Probably can.
I just can't multitask
And
anymore.
and I'm gonna send, Mike asked me to send him a link
Hmm.
to this slide deck so that it will be in the minutes so that people
Yep,
want
the
to
board can look at it.
refresh their memory. So
Well,
our if we get the numbers in time from Lisa, we will try to add some kind of graphic analysis showing the total cost. If not, we'll basically be presenting what we have here and saying, this is where we are. I think your recommendations are based, in some ways on incomplete information because the total cost could flip flop. The ones that are like lower cost construction wise could be higher cost operationally, and over that 20 or 30-year period could actually cost more. So we'll just have to wait and see. So either we'll try, if we have time, we'll try and include that in the presentation. If we don't have time, this is what we'll be presenting.
Do you think, thanks, David, do you think you could get us an updated packet here that includes K2 and L as well? So we have that, or?
Yeah, we might call it G1.
Sure. Yeah.
Just
makes more sense.
because if we get to the double A's and double B's, I'm out of here.
Yeah. Me too, David.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, we'll get on that tomorrow. And then we'll either update we'll update the slide deck, and then you'll have the link so you can just check the link.
I'll send these notes about the vote totals and what I've recorded the new options are to Cindy and Mike.
Great.
And Cam, copy me, because what I'll do is I'll prioritize those ones that we voted on to be able to then work
Yep.
to finalize those numbers.
That would be great.
Yes.
If you could just get to that set, that would be amazing.
Yeah,
We
great.
know you're super busy, honestly.
Yeah. And
No,
if
it's
somebody
okay.
somebody
This-
at the board says, well, why didn't you like option C or whatever? And people want more information, I guess then we can go back into it. But I think you're fine, Lisa, just using the ones we decided upon and taking a dive into those.
I'll do them all, but I'll
Okay.
prioritize those
Okay.
first to make sure I have them for the board meeting next
Okay.
week.
Right,
get it.
because we're only, I mean, it is a board meeting. We don't necessarily have time to look at 10 at once. So the most popular, I think, would make sense.
Yep.
And we could go further in another meeting, but in the meeting we've got to work for.
How long do we have, Ashley, on the agenda to present?
An
1
hour.
hour.
An hour.
Oh, okay. Well, that's
Yep.
good. So will they get a copy of this
Yes,
Yep.
presentation?
yep.
Okay. So they'll have already looked at it.
But it doesn't come along with all the words and discussion we've had, so a lot of it will be confusing and, like it was for us when I mean, everyone will get something from it.
Yeah, I know. It's hard to, it's a lot of words, to,
It's a lot, it's a
it's
lot
a
of
lot of
everything.
words.
It's a
A
lot,
lot of
words.
choices, a lot of dollars, a lot of
Yeah, no,
people.
and we appreciate you folks hanging in there with us because it is, this is not for the faint of heart. There's a lot of, it's a multivariable equation, which are always,
It's
um,
crazy.
hard. And, we have to, and, because we're trying to go apples to apples with all the different options, we're trying to stay at a strategic level and not get into like this tactical thing like, well, would you put the addition on the side or the back? It's really more about like trying to treat all of them equally with the same rules so that we can compare them, and figure out which ones make the most sense. So
Yep.
It's very hard for us to do that because we all have, board members have all these other things that weigh in on these choices. And, it is, I can see where you're sifting through it and I really do appreciate
Yep.
the delivery of it.
good.
Yep. You're
Well,
here.
I appreciate that. I've been staring at spreadsheets for between this district and others for about a month and a half, and
I bet.
I'm just trying to make sure that we don't leave any juicy rocks unturned.
Yep.
I am
I
grateful.
stare at spreadsheets all day long.
Yeah.
Well,
Why?
Lisa,
Why?
we're birds of a feather in some ways, Lisa.
Oh my God.
Yeah, you would think, I mean, when you do this planning work, it's like a lot of spreadsheets and nobody tells you about that in architecture school.
No kidding. No
I'm not,
kidding.
I'm not upset about it. I think it's super fun and exciting to think about these futures,
Yeah.
and I really do appreciate your folks' patience and understanding because you're in the hot seat, and we're just trying to give you information and stay agnostic, but you guys will have to live it. So
Yeah.
much thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks to you both as well. This is a really good, informative meeting, and I think we made some good choices, and it was all based on all the work that Kim and Dave did. So thank you both.
Okay.
That's all I got. So
Motion to adjourn?
yeah. So here's a second.
Sure.
Cindy, there you go. There was only one.
Sure.
Just a quick note,
Yeah.
Kim, when you have the updated G whatever, the ones that were the ones that
G1 and K2.
yeah,
Yeah.
send it to me because then I'll plug it into the agenda for next week so people can look at it ahead of time.
Yeah, we'll update the packet.
All right.
Thanks, you guys.
Okay.